Things are getting really becoming unpredictable in the palace of Ooni of Ife right now as I do this video. And it's still on the developing story of how Auntie Igby, went into that sinister pregnancy arrangement with that house help, And in our preceding video to this one, we told you, the revelation behind that arrangement and how the thing, how Auntie Igby came out, midway, to abort that arrangement, because of the fear of the ancient sword and the now uh, and Iyanifa, who is now right now in the palace. Okay, so that is why she aborted that plan. And don't forget that while we were doing that story, we told you that this house help, the way that thing was cut short, and the fact that instead of giving her 15 million naira, she only got 500,000 naira. We told you that this cannot be the end of this developing story. And right now, we are back to tell you about the return of the house help. Yes, you heard me well. So the house help has returned, and the royal opera has just now begun in the palace, unfortunately. So the sky over the palace of Ile-Ife, has been painted in dark shades of blue and gray, heavy with the threat of an impending storm. And this storm is created by no other person than Auntie Igby herself. And this is why they say sometimes, you see, no matter what you do in secrecy, it's just a matter of time. One day, that secret thing will come to the open. And when it happens, it will take a lot of people by shock and surprise, outrage, or whatever you want to call it. Exactly the way this developing story, this rumor that is already making the rounds in the social media, is making us feel right now. In fact, I am terribly disappointed and shocked if this story, this rumor, is actually found to be authentic, because I can't believe that this can really happen. Of course, we'll be hearing rumors of juju scare, blah blah blah, so many other stuff, but never did I ever imagine, that Auntie Igby will get herself involved in something like this. So the grand halls of the palace were alive with shatter, adorned in gold and deep hues of royalty, as dignitaries and nobles gather for the evening celebration. Incense burned in the air, drums beat in the distance, and dancers swirled in rhythmic elegance. Okay? It was supposed to be a night of joy. Then came the scream. Oh my God. Oh my God. I must see the Oni. They heard the sound of a lady, from afar, and the sound was, I must see the Oni. And it was, according to this developing story, they said that sound, that scream, reverberated all over the palace walls. And except maybe if you are deaf, that is when you say you didn't hear the sound, according to what it's being said in this story. So the voice was sharp, desperate, and filled with raw agony. It sliced through the air like a blade, halting every moment in the palace courtyard. There's a way you hear some sound, especially when that sound is laden with agony. When you hear, an agonizing voice of a young lady, you will be forced to hear it many, many times in your brain, you know. So that is exactly how this young house help's voice, was described in this story. At the gates, this young house help, stood drenched in the evening drizzle, her hair unkempt, her clothes tattered, and she clutched the iron bars, of the palace gates, her fingers white from the force of her grip. The guards attempted to push her back, but she trashed, against them like a lioness cornered. Don't forget that, look, this lady is already like, she's like a wounded lion already. The fact that she could get into that sort of arrangement, gentleman agreement with Auntie Igby, and after doing that, after the promises of 15 million, after the promise of taking her abroad and everything, the life of affluence, for her to come and just abort that arrangement after 1 or 2, 3 months and be giving her 500,000 naira, thereby shattering her dreams and aspirations, you don't expect that that kind of person will not fight back. And that is the level she has found herself. And that is where the energy is also coming from. That is where the confidence, to also face the palace itself is coming from. And she screamed, according to this story. She screamed, I was used. I was used. She screamed. I have been carrying a child for Auntie Igbe, and she discarded me like a common thief. Yes, we talked about how she was treated in the preceding story or video to this one, and it's something that nobody's going to take lightly, no matter how naive you are. So her voice, cracked and desperate, sent a ripple through the audience gathering at the grand entrance of the gate. Nobles gasped, rumors surged, like a wildfire, and the palace servants stood frozen. Because this sort of thing had never happened before, that a young lady is screaming at the top of her voice saying that, look, I was used. And she now went further to say, I am carrying a child for Auntie Igbe. You know who Auntie Igbe is, her position in the palace. So this obviously was something that was happening like a film before their very own eyes. Okay? So inside the hall, where the golden chandeliers, cast flickering lights upon the walls, Auntie Igbe sat stiffly on her throne like a shell. The color drained, from her face as it tremor ran through her hands. When this kind of happen now, you when say your hands not clean, you when say this girl, if allowed to enter this place fully into the main hall, wahala don't happen. And this girl, there's nothing that will make this girl not to enter this place. And according to this story, it's just a matter of few seconds. So the color, the situation I think we found herself at that time is beyond description. They said she became like a statue. She was there, but not really there. Okay. And the Oni sisters, you trust them now. Long suspicious of our ways. Some of them have always suspected Atingbi's ways, according to what the story is saying. So they exchanged sharp glances amongst themselves. So one of them, the most outspoken one of them rose instantly. Did you hear that? Yes, she's asked, did you hear that? Did you hear what the house head just said? She hissed, turning to her siblings. I knew it. Yes, I knew it. I knew Auntie B was up to something sinister. You see, when you dey do something when they bad, you go always get down one person or two persons around you when their body language go dey sense am, their body go dey tell them say there's something wrong that is going on. But, for some inexplicable reason, they will just keep it to themselves. And that is why this one is saying that, look, I knew something was sinister. So Oni's father, our own Paropo, who was also available, who was seated on the high dais, pressed his fingers against his forehead in deep distress. Why would the old man not be distressed? This man is old. He should be in his very late 80s, very late 80s, close to 90s, if I'm not mistaken. Okay? So for him to be hearing this, it's just something that is unbelievable. And I can imagine the kind of distress he was going through. So his heavy high, uh, they said he made a very loud sign of a cough, of disbelief, that a scandal of this magnitude had never tainted the royal household because the man is an old man. Even when all the Onis were there, this man was right there. And according to the story, he was said to say he has never witnessed this sort of embarrassment. Meanwhile, outside, the house help fell to her knees, clutching her stomach as tears streamed down her face, and the crowd around her had swelled, forming a semicircle of murmuring, murmurings of the palace aides, the guards, and visiting dignitaries. This is really one big embarrassment already. So she went further to say, I gave her everything. As she cries, she said she gave her everything, talking of her thing now, and she promised me 15 million naira. She swore she would take care of me. But after a few months, she threw me, out like an animal, and she offered me 500,000 naira and asked me to terminate the pregnancy. Wow, how evil can Auntie Ibi be? Gaps fill the air. A noble woman covered her mouth in horror, just like most of the people who heard what came out of this house help. So the chief priest, standing among the elders, tightened his jaw. Or for chief priest himself to tighten his jaw, you can imagine the level of shock, you know, that was pervading that hall. So the Oni's royal guards, hesitated. How could they silence her now? Because when this talk, when the house help started talking, some of them were thinking of maybe they should find a way to silence this girl before she spills more damaging, scandalous information that everybody gathered will hear of. And this will not end well for the palace itself. So then, from the palace towering balcony, a figure emerged. And that figure, of course, was our dear Kabisi, draped in his white traditional regalia, his bearded crown resting regally on his head. His gaze fell upon the trembling woman below. His face remained unreadable, but something in his eyes darkened. I trust my Oni now. So Antigbe, still seated inside, suddenly sprang to her feet, her pulse racing. If the king intervened, if he allowed this to escalate, her carefully built world would be shattered. Well, who cares? I really don't care. When you were planning this sinister, making this sinister move, what were you thinking about? If you ask me, what were you, if you want me to ask, what were you thinking about? So the palace guards turned, waiting for the commands of our dear Kabiyesi. Will he silence the girl or will he demand the truth? That is what everybody was now thinking at this time, according to the story. So the storm rumbled in the distance, mirroring the tension in the air. And in that moment, the fate of Auntie Ibi and perhaps the palace itself hung in the balance. But Oni's sisters would not just let go. So they asked Auntie Ibi why she could ever conceive such a sinister plan for their brother, the monarch, our dear Kabiesi. In response, the now visibly traumatized Auntie Ibi was reported to fidget and said the arrangement was meant for her brother and not for the Ooni of Ife. But the truth of the matter is this: no matter how Auntie Ibi tries to deny this thing, I just think it's a matter of time that more revelation will come out. And I don't know how she's going to survive this, though she has survived so many storms in the past. But this is one storm that I'm really, really keen and waiting to see how it all unfolds. And especially if this rumor that is coming out at this time is true, because if this rumor is true, I don't see her surviving this. But again, like we always say, when these stories come out and they're already making the rounds in the social media, we take them and we reenact them, for your listening pleasure. And sometimes some of these things turn out to be very true, some close to the truth, some maybe not the truth. But in this case, I can tell you that look, if this is true, then we should prepare for tougher times ahead. For until we should prepare for the unthinkable, because I trust that by this time Ooni of Ife, the Kabiyesi that we know, cannot tolerate this. Even if he decide to do that, I'm very sure that the elder, the sisters, and Paropo himself will prevail on him not to let this slide. So while we wait to see how this story unfolds, I want to say, yours sincerely will be sniffing around to get follow-up stories on this and update you, hopefully. So what do you think about this story? Please go to the comment section and leave your comment. And hopefully I'll meet you right there. God bless you. Bye-bye.